Hi, folks. I hope that you guys are doing pretty well. So today is Wednesday, the 25th of June, 2025. And in today's video, I'm going to decipher for you Psalm 79, verses 1 to 13. So it's not too long. Now, Psalm 79 is actually mainly for the second half of the tribulation period. And there are also millennial kingdom prophecies in the mix. Okay, so as you can see in my program here, and I also have the Bible here with me. Okay. Now, I'd rather show you my program because in my program I have reading all the verses anyway, and I can give you quite quickly the rundown. So I'll only use the Bible if needed, okay? But just note that everything that is in the Bible is on Psalm 79. I have already written it here, verse by verse. So verse 1, it reads, O God, the heathen are come into thy inheritance, okay? So that's part one of the prophecy. The heathen has come into thy inheritance. The holy temple they have defiled. Okay, so that's the third temple. Um, the defiling is, of course, the abomination of desolation, as per Daniel 9:27, and they have lies Jerusalem on heaps. Okay, that's, of course, what Luke tells us in chapter 21, when Jerusalem will be compassed with armies. Okay, so there are three parts to this prophecy. Part one, where it reads, O God, the heathen are come into thy inheritance. So this part is about when Israel, Jerusalem, if you like, is compassed with armies. Then note that desolation thereof is nigh. In other words, abomination of desolation. And so this part one, then you can link it precisely to Luke chapter 21, verse 20. Now the second part here of the prophecy where I got this number two here, the holy temple that has defiled. This, of course, is about the abomination of desolation, as per Daniel 9:27. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. And part three of the prophecy, where it reads, "They have laid Jerusalem on heaps." This part of the prophecy is linked to Luke chapter 21, verses 21 to 24, and it reads, "Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto." So this prophecy is very straightforward. So this is, of course, for the second half of the tribulation period at the beginning of it. Okay. Now, verse two: "The dead bodies of thy servants have thy given to be meat unto the fowls of heaven." This is actually quite interesting. That's, of course, thy servants. Who are the servants of God? The prophets. But I also think that aside from Moses and Elijah, the servants of God, as the Antichrist causes the abomination of desolation, okay, uh, and as Jerusalem is also encompassed, and that lost that are in Judea flee, and so on, uh, and many will be taken by the sword as well. So what I'm thinking is that perhaps many of the Levite priests serving on the third temple will probably sadly come under the sword, aside from Moses and Elijah. Of course, Moses and Elijah will be killed, at the end of the first half of the tribulation period when Leviathan arises. So on these first two, there are two parts to this prophecy. Number one is to do with the dead bodies of the servants that are given to be meat unto the fowls of heaven. This prophecy refers to the two things. Number one, the death of the two witnesses, Moses and Elijah, as the servants of God, as per Revelation 7 and 8. On Revelation, uh, 7, 8, rather, verse 8 reads, "And the dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, Jerusalem, which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt." That's actually interesting. Now, uh, right now, we are seeing this woke agenda around the world, okay? And so, this woke agenda right now is actually a precursor to what's going to happen throughout during the tribulation period. And so, as Moses and Elijah died, if you like, and he's saying here that the city of Jerusalem is going to be known or called as Sodom and Egypt. Sodom tells you that, with this woke agenda that we're having right now, that there's going to be a spirit of rebellion against God, you know. There's going to be that woke agenda, rebellion against God, just as in the days of Abraham, okay? And on top of that, there's going to be a spirit of Egypt. Now, this spirit of Egypt is to do with when Israel was in bondage. And so if you add Sodom and Egypt, in other words, the woke agenda, plus the rebellion against God, plus the Jewish people being in bondage, okay, if you add these two together, that's how spiritually, uh, you know, the tribulation period is going to be. It's going to be evil, rebellious, and the Jewish people, of course, are going to be in bondage, in the second half of the tribulation period. So that's what he's saying here, you know, with this spirit is going to be called Sodom and Egypt. So that in itself is actually quite interesting. So yeah, so this prophecy is borderline, if you like, with the end of the first half of the tribulation period, okay, and it's also stepping into the second half of the tribulation period, as Moses and Elijah died at the end of the first half, and then the Antichrist, the second Antichrist, arises, and he causes the abomination of desolation. Um, and those that are in Judea flee, and many shall fall by the edge of the sword, and many Jewish people are going to be taken captives, as they say in Luke chapter 21, verses 20 to 24, and so on, and further. Then you can expect, probably, aside from Moses and Elijah, that many servants, the Levite priests, will probably die by the edge of the sword, sadly, I'm not going to be there, but that's a probability, because, the Levite priests are also servants of God. They are serving in the temple. So that's something to take into consideration, I think, Now then, let me just turn over the page here. And so we get moving along. So, and then the part of the processes where also our Lord was crucified. Okay, so of course the Lord was crucified in Jerusalem. Okay, but number two, or the second point, if you like, about this prophecy, it's also linked to the servants of the third temple, like I just said, when the abomination of desolation happened. So this is quite possible, especially when you think about the prophecy in Luke 21:24, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword and shall be led away captive into all nations. So this is what's going to happen sadly to the Jewish people, So this is also a possibility, And Jerusalem shall be trodden then of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Now, part two, if you like, of the prophecy where he reads, the flesh of thy saints unto the beasts of the earth. This part of the prophecy is linked to Revelation 13:7, when Leviathan arises, and it reads, and it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. In other words, he's going to kill them, And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. So he's going to rule the whole world with the 10 kings. So these are some of the things that we got to take into consideration regarding this whole prophecy here. Let me just go back here to it. This verse 2 has a lot in it. A lot to consider. The dead bodies of the servants, just to recap, Moses and Elijah, plus probably the Levite priests, as many will fall by the edge of the sword. And also how it says here that the saints are going to be overcome as a beast arises, in other words, Leviathan. So, these are some of the things that one has to consider, and think about as well. So that's what I wanted to say with that, Now moving on to verse 3, and it reads, the blood have they shed like water round about Jerusalem. Yes, because we know that in Luke 21:24, and many shall fall by the edge of the sword. Okay. Um, and there was none to bury them. So that's interesting that the saints are going to be just left there lying on the street without, a proper burial. That's because they're going to be really wicked. So for my commentary here on verse 3, I wrote down this verse in context, follows on from verse 2, okay? When the Antichrist overcomes the signs as per Revelation 13:7. But this prophecy can also be linked to Psalm 10, verses 8 to 10. Now, verse 8 of the Psalm 10 reads, He sitteth in the lurking places of the villages, in the street places, in the in the secret, not street, in the secret, places does he murder the innocent. Okay, his eyes are privately set against the poor. Okay, so when the second Antichrist arises, not so much during the first half because Israel will be just fine, because Israel will have, the sacrifices, the Levite priests, and Moses and Elijah. But once that's out of the way, Moses and Elijah and all of that, and the abomination of desolation happens and so on. So once that's out of the way, then the Antichrist can hide in secret places to murder the innocent. So this prophecy here, or this verse 3, if you like, is also linked to Psalm 11 too. For lo, the wicked bend their bow, okay? So they're gonna have some kind of weapon. They might ready their arrow, okay? So it's a figure of speech upon the string. So they're gonna be using weapons that they might probably shoot, okay, or murder at the upright in heart, okay? It's also linked to Psalm 14:1, and it reads, The fool has said in his heart, There is no God. They are corrupt. They have done abominable, in other words, murders, like it says here, etc. Abominable works. There is none that does good, etc., etc. So, once you begin to read some of these psalms that I just wrote down, uh, the righteous will be murdered, because they are doing abominable things. What does abominable tell you? Murders and all kinds of horrible things. That's why it's linked to Psalm 14:1, because they're saying in the heart, there is no God, they are corrupt, and basically they're doing whatever they want, abominable things, murders, and anything else, that comes to their mind. So, verse 4, we, in other words, Israel, become a reproach. This is also a second half of the tribulation period prophecy, because Israel will be fine in the first half, but in the second half, we, Israel, become a reproach to our neighbors, a scorn and derision to them that are round about us. So for my commentary here, I put down the countries neighboring Israel will hide or express the contempt for Israel. And so this prophecy is what linked to Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 14, and it reads, All thy lovers have forgotten thee, they seek thee not, for I have wounded thee with the wound of an enemy, with the chastisement of a cruel one, for the multitudes of thy iniquity, because thy sins were increased. So for my commentary here, I put down, well, if this is the case that we Israel become a reproach to our neighbors, okay, and a scorn and a derision to those that are around about us. Now, think about today's Abraham Accords, how Israel is signing Abraham Accords with some of his neighbors. If God is going to allow this to happen according to Jeremiah 30, verse 14, for I have wounded thee with the wound of an enemy, with the chastising of a cruel one, then uh, these Abraham Accords, they must still be around for until the end of the first half of the tribulation period. But after that, they will be disannulled, so that this prophecy in Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 14, can come to pass. So when the second half of the tribulation period begins, this Abraham Accords will have to be disannulled, so that this part of the prophecy can come to pass, and also how it says here, we have become a reproach to our neighbors. So if that's the case, the Abraham Accords will be disannulled, you know, um, when the second half of the tribulation begins. And it's also linked to Isaiah 28, verse 22, and it reads, Now therefore be you not mockers, This is what God is telling the wicked. Lest your bands be made strong, for I have heard from the Lord God of hosts a consumption, even determined upon the whole earth. Okay. See also Isaiah chapter 60 verse 15, which clarifies all of this, So these are some of the things to think about, regarding this verse 4, especially how now we have these Abraham Accords, but that the prophecy is fulfilled. Um, some of Israel's neighbors, or maybe all of them, they're going to scorn Israel, And so if that's the case, and we have these Abraham Accords being developed right now, that will have to be disannulled when the second half of the tribulation begins, in order that all of these prophecies come to pass. I think, so, according to my commentary and my reasoning, So these are some of the things that one has to think about as Bible prophecies are fulfilled. Um, Now, of course, uh, part of that, uh, let me just get back here for a moment. So, yeah, I should have gone to verse 5. So, now then, let's get into verse 5. So, the Jewish people in the second half of the tribulation period are going to be saying, how long, Lord? Not so much. This is what is prophecies for the second half of the tribulation period, when you sort of like, read all the prophecies, and in context from verses 1 to 4. We just read about the abomination of desolation, and the Jewish people having to flee to Judea. Many will be taken captives and so on. So by verse 5, the Jewish people are going to say, how long, Lord? So this is why this is a prophecy for the second half of the tribulation period. How long, Lord, wilt thou be angry forever? Shall thy jealousy burn like fire? So in my commentary, this prophecy is also mainly for the second half of the tribulation period, when the Jewish people will be oppressed, and they're going to be asking how long. So this asking of how long, Lord, can be linked to Psalm 9:13, Psalm 10 verse 1. See also Psalm 13 verses 1 and 2. Okay, so Psalm 13 verses 1 and 2, which clarifies all of this. Sorry, I just think I just had a few branches fall on top of my car or something. It's very windy at the moment. Um, anyway, so yeah, in the second half of the tribulation period, the Jewish people are going to be oppressed, so they're going to be asking, "How long, O Lord?" Okay, and where it says, "Why standest thou afar off, O Lord? Why hidest thou thyself in times of trouble?" This can be linked to Isaiah 51 verse 9, and also Psalm 12 verse 1, where it reads in Psalm 12:1, "Help, Lord, for the godly man ceases." So there's not going to be, uh, any more signs, because the Antichrist, when he rises in the second half of the tribulation period, he's going to overcome the signs. And then the Jewish people, God is going to help them supernaturally. Some of them will be taken as captives to all nations all over the world. And some sadly will perish, by the sword, like it says in Luke 21, chapter 21, verses 20 to 24. Okay, so for the godly men, this is for the faithful file from among the children of men, etc., etc. So basically, people are becoming more decadent. They are filing. Okay, um, shall thy jealousy burn like fire? They're saying. So this process can be linked to Isaiah 54 verses 7 to 10. With what God is trying to do with Israel. So read that, Isaiah 54 7 to 10. And this is what God is trying to do with Israel. Now, on verse 7, it reads of this Isaiah 54, "For a small moment have I forsaken thee, but with great mercies will I gather thee when it comes back for the millennial kingdom." Okay. It can also be linked to other prophecies of Jesus' second coming, with prophecies like Isaiah chapter 60, verse 1, and Isaiah 62, verse 1. And Isaiah 62, verse 1 reads, "For Zion's sake will I not hold my peace, And for Jerusalem's sake, I will not rest until the righteousness thereof go forth as brightness, and the salvation thereof as a lamp that burneth. So this is Isaiah 62:1, of course. It's a millennial kingdom prophecy. Uh, See also Psalm 68, verse 1. Let God arise, let his armies be scattered, let them also that hide him flee before him, etc., etc. See also Psalm 14, verse 7, and Zephaniah 3, verse 8. Okay, so see Zephaniah verse 3, chapter 3, rather, verse 8. Okay, now on verse 6 is read, pour out thy wrath upon the heathen that have not known thee, and upon the kingdoms that have not called upon thy name. Of course, God is going to pour out his wrath on the heathen and those kingdoms that didn't want to know about God. This is called a millennial kingdom prophecy, when God is going to perform his judgments. Okay, so it's a millennial kingdom prophecy upon Jesus' second coming, when he comes back to perform his judgments rather. One of the best prophecies to link this verse with is Revelation 19:18, that you might eat the flesh of kings. Okay, so and the flesh of captains, and the flesh of mighty men, and the flesh of all men, both free and bond, both small and great. Okay, so um, all those nations, all those kings that don't want to believe in God, all those heathen, the flesh, you know, like it says here, that you might eat the flesh of kings. Okay, so this is a promise for the heathen and for all those kingdoms that don't want to believe in God. Okay, now also this prophecy it can be linked to Matthew 25 verses 32 and 33. Verse 33 reads, and he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Okay, so commentary, I think that these two prophecies sum it all up very well for this verse. There are many prophecies, uh, but other good ones include Psalm 10:6, and it reads, "The Lord is King forever and ever. The heathen are perished." Okay, so the heathen and all those kingdoms that wanna believe in God, they are going to be perished out of His land. See also Psalm 11:6, and see also Psalm 94 verse 1, etc., etc. So you can link these to many other prophecies. Okay. Now we are about halfway here on verse 7. The verse 7 reads, "For thou hast devoured Jacob." Of course, this is this is going to happen during the second half of the tribulation period, when the abomination of desolation happens, and those that are in Judea flee, and many will be taken captives and fall by the edge of the sword, and so on. Okay, and likewise his dwelling place. In other words, the third temple, if you like. So this prophecy is for the second half of the tribulation period, when Israel, Jerusalem is compassed with armies, and that desolation thereof is nigh. Okay, according to Luke 21:20. It's also linked to Luke 21:24, and it reads, "And shall be led captive into all nations until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled." So that's why Israel will be devoured somewhat. But don't forget that one third will make it through, that are living in the land, according to Zechariah chapter 13, verse 9. So, and the God is also going to protect a portion of the Jewish people in the wilderness. So it's not all bad news. Okay. So this verse 7 here is also linked to Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 7. "Alas, for the day is cried, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble." Okay. Where it says here, "For they have devoured Jacob." Well, it is even the time of Jacob's trouble. Okay. But he shall be saved out of it. So um, God will bring a remnant through, and then all those that make it through into the millennial kingdom, all shall be saved, according to Romans 11:26. Okay. Now then, verse 8. "Oh, remember not against us former iniquities." So this is what the church people, will be saying to God during the second half, especially of the tribulation period. Please don't remember our former iniquities. In other words, what the Jewish people did, especially, when the first temple went down, let thy tender mercies speedily prevent us, for we are brought very low. Of course, they're going to be feeling the pain. So this prophecy again is for the second half of the tribulation period when Israel is trodden down by the Gentiles. Well, the Jewish people, although they are going to be in great distress during the tribulation period when the abomination of desolation happens, God has made promises that Israel will be saved out of it, okay, according to Isaiah 28:18. So, the Jewish people will be saying, "Oh, remember not against us for my iniquities. Let thy tender mercy speedily prevent us, for we are brought very low." So God is also making promises. Um, and it's linked to Isaiah 28:18 because, although the Jewish people know that they have done wrong by setting the covenant with the Antichrist, that's why he's saying here, please God, don't hold that against us, like, especially setting the covenant with the Antichrist, like what happened to us, during the days when the first temple went down. And so it's linked to Isaiah 28:18 for that reason, and your covenant with death shall be disannulled, okay? Uh, and so these are the promises that God is making. The Jewish people are saying, "Have tender mercies for us," and God is saying here, "Well, don't worry. Your covenant with death and with hell shall be disannulled." And it's also linked to Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 7. But he shall be saved out of it. So although the Jewish people were saying, "Hey, please don't hold it against us. Have mercy upon us," God is saying here, "Hey, your covenant is gonna be disannulled, and you shall be saved out of it." So a portion will make it through, a remnant, if you like, because we know that in Zechariah 13:9, 13, chapter 13, verse 9, saying that one third will make it through of those living in the land of Israel. Okay. See also Isaiah chapter 54, verse 7, for a small moment I have forsaken thee, but with great mercies I will gather thee. See also Psalm 9:2 and Psalm 14, verse 7, etc., etc. So, although the Jewish people will be saying, please forgive what we did, have mercy upon us, and so on, um, nonetheless, God is making promises here. So, the Jewish people will need to remember the promises of God that the covenant is going to be disannulled, that they are going to be saved out of it, and so on. But God has to do this. He has forsaken them for a small moment so that, Daniel's 70th week can come to pass, that prophecy and so on. So, yeah, that is that. You have to take all this into consideration, all these prophecies. Now then, verse 9. Help us, O God of our salvation, for the glory of thy name, and deliver us and purge away our sins for thy name's sake. So, for commentary, I put here, of course, this is a millennial kingdom prophecy, which has many parts to it and can be linked to many prophecies. But Psalm 9, verses 13 and 14 indicates that God will help, you know, and save Israel, and that the children of Israel will praise Jesus as a result of this, because it reads on verse 9 of this prophecy, verse 9, 13, it reads, have mercy upon me, O Lord. Consider my trouble, which I suffer of them that hate me, uh, thou that lifted me up from the gates of death. Okay, and then um, on verse 19, 14 it reads, that I might show forth all thy praise in the gates of the daughter of Zion. I will rejoice in thy salvation. And Jesus will purge away all the sins of Israel, according to Romans 11:27 and Zephaniah 3:13. The remnant of Israel shall not do iniquity, nor speak lies, neither shall a deceitful tongue be found in their mouth, for they shall feed and lie down, and none shall make them afraid. So, yeah, we've got to take all these prophecies into consideration when you think about verse 9 here, So this verse 9 then is linked to this psalm here and others, and the prophecies here of Romans 11:27 and Zephaniah 3:13. So these are some of the things to think about. And there are more prophecies that you can link it to, but I don't want to keep this video too long. Verse 10, where it reads, "Wherefore should the heathen say, where is their God? Let him," in other words, Jesus, "be known among the heathen in our sight by the revenging of the blood of thy servants which is shed." So this prophecy is for the second coming of Jesus, and according to Revelation 19:15, Jesus will smite the nations of the heathen, and out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations, and he treaded the winepress of the fierceness of wrath Almighty God. So this prophecy also links very well with Joel 2:17, and it reads, "Let the priests, the ministers of the Lord, weep between the porch and the altar, and let them say, um, Spare thy people, O Lord, and give not thy heritage to reproach, that the heathen should rule over them. Wherefore should they say among the people, Where is their God?" So remember this, where is their God? What does it say here? Um, you know, wherefore should the heathen say, Where is their God? Okay, so that's why it's linked to Joel uh, pretty much perfectly, you know. So, verse 11 then, um, let the sign of the prisoner, in other words, Israel, come before thee, according to the greatness of thy power. Preserve those, preserve thou those that are appointed to die. So, for my commentary here, I wrote down in context from verse 10 and also from the following verse 12, the sign of the prisoner refers to Israel. It's kind of like they're holding their breath, because it's a heathen, you know, that will be gathered in Armageddon, according to Revelation 16:16, and are brought down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, according to Joel 3:2, for judgment. Okay, um, you know, they are coming. These heathen are coming down. They're gonna be trying to obliterate the Jewish people, Jesus, and the armies of God. In other words, the signs. But God will preserve those that are appointed to die, like it says here in the prophecy. So the Jewish people, um, you know, they are sighing, of course, they're taking a deep breath, and and it reads here, according to the greatness of thy power, preserve those that are appointed to die. So that the Jewish people, you know, uh, they're gonna be feeling like, hey, we're about to die, but preserve us, only you can preserve us, because what's happening is that according to Revelation 16:16, there's gonna be the gathering in the gathering in Armageddon, or in Megiddo, if you like, but God is gonna bring them now to the valley of Jehoshaphat, to judge them according to Joel 3:2 and also Zechariah. So, but nonetheless, uh, God will preserve those that are appointed to die, or the Jewish people, okay? And those that make it through after God, uh, you know, makes his judgment, if you like, in the valley of Jehoshaphat, then Romans 11:26 says, "And so all Israel shall be saved, those that make it through into the millennial kingdom, even that 1/3 living in the land," according to Zechariah 13:9. Okay, so there is a little bit to think about what this really means in context. Let the sign of the prisoner, in other words, Israel, come before thee according to the greatness of thy power. Preserve those that are appointed to die. So this, of course, is a millennial kingdom prophecy, because you know the Jewish people are holding their breath, and of course, uh, they're gonna feel like they're appointed to die, but God is going to fulfill this prophecy when He comes back. In other words, preserve those that are appointed to die. So this is why this is a millennial kingdom prophecy, because God is going to preserve those that are appointed to die. In other words, the Jewish people, and God is going to make that great judgment and all those that make it through into the millennial kingdom, um, you know, will have eternal life, and so all Israel shall be saved, like it says in Romans 11:26. Okay. Now, verse 12, and render unto our neighbors sevenfold into their bosom their reproach, wherewith they have reproached thee, O Lord. So basically, like I said earlier, you know, the neighbors of Israel, they're going to reproach, the Jewish people, and so, you know, the nation of Israel is saying here, render unto our neighbors sevenfold into their bosom. So basically, from my commentary here, this prophecy is, of course, uh, for the millennial kingdom when Jesus performs his judgment. Uh, and this prophecy is saying that when Jesus comes back for the millennial kingdom and perform his judgment, he's going to punish the neighboring nations around Israel sevenfold when they are thrown into hell. Now, the number seven represents perfection according to God. And so these nations will get the perfect punishment in hell. Now, some references in the Bible regarding this sevenfold, if you like. So some references in the Bible about the sevenfold or perfect punishment include Genesis 4:15, okay, and Leviticus 26, verse 18, and it reads, "And if you will not yet for all this hearken unto me, then I will punish you 7 times more for your sins." So we can link it to Genesis 4:15 and Leviticus 26:18. This sevenfold punishment, if you like, or this perfect punishment that God is going to dish out to the neighbors of Israel, those nations surrounding Israel. Okay, so that's going to happen upon Jesus' second coming for the millennial kingdom. And the last verse here, verse 13. Um, uh, so we, thy people, and sheep of thy pasture will give thee thanks forever. Exactly. So the fact that he's saying here, so we, thy people, and sheep, is following context from verse 12. So that's why verse 12 is a millennial kingdom prophecy, because once God has done the punishment, so we, thy people, we're going to become your sheep. We're going to believe in you. We're going to be the sheep of thy pasture. We'll give thee thanks forever. We will show forth thy praise to all generations. So this is a millennial kingdom prophecy when Jesus comes back to be the king of Israel, and his children of Israel will finally become the long-awaited sheep of their Redeemer, Jesus. Okay, they will finally believe on Jesus. They will praise and give thanks to the Lord and to all generations. So this verse is linked to many prophecies in the Bible, like Isaiah chapter 12, verses 4 to 6. Psalm 95:7 reads, "For he is our God," okay, and we are the people of his pasture. In other words, the sheep, and the sheep, okay, and the sheep let me turn around the page, um, of his hand. Today, if you will hear his voice. So see also Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 19, etc., etc. So there are more prophecies that we can link this verse to. So that's about it, folks, for these 13 verses. We have a cluster here of primarily second half of the tribulation period prophecies, and also some promises also for Jesus when he comes back for the millennial kingdom to perform his judgments. So that's about it, folks. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you all later.